Good evening, everyone. A passionate movement for justice is finding itself swept under the feet of rampaging and destructive mobs who have sown chaos in cities across the country. In New York last night, looters again overwhelming police to ransack stores and businesses, this time in the heart of Manhattan. The mayor now banning cars in much of the city. Tonight, police officers themselves being targeted. In St. Louis overnight, several were shot. As elsewhere, peaceful marchers are taking the streets again at this hour, trying to reclaim their voices and the narrative. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Miguel Almaguer leads us off. Miguel, what are you seeing?
Lester, this crowd here in Los Angeles easily soars into the thousands. It's one of the largest crowds in this entire region. It comes after a night of violence and looting. But for now, this crowd has been peaceful.
It wasn't demonstrators, but looters who marred the message of peaceful protests with acts of violence. From coast to coast, brazen break-ins as police tangled with criminals. In Midtown Manhattan, Macy's flagship ransacked in Herald Square. Famed Fifth Avenue raided by thieves, smashing windows. After 700 arrests, 8,000 officers could now enforce the city's 8 p.m. curfew.
The police in New York City were not effective at doing their job last night, period.
In some of the nation's biggest cities, the night spiraled out of control early. Across the street from the White House, rubber bullets and flash grenades were launched into a peaceful crowd before curfew.
If you believe that our rights are valued, then you would believe that this isn't right.
There's also trouble in St. Louis. Steve Patterson is there.
City leaders here condemning what they're calling a tragic night of violence. 4 police officers shot after peaceful rallying devolves into shootings, fires, and widespread looting. Now a 9 p.m. curfew for the first time tonight.
With the president threatening to deploy the U.S. military if governors can't keep their state safe, pockets of violence continue to unfold after 7 nights of protest in at least 140 cities.
You're tarnishing a powerful movement right now. It's not allowing our word to be heard.
With 6 police officers shot and several struck by cars, a plea for the mayhem to end. The National Guard deployed in at least 21 states, including California, where looters again raided stores and shut down the 405.
This is the moment protesters took over one of the busiest freeways in the nation. Traffic has come to a standstill.
Looting a store, burning a building, attacking a police officer, seeing the death and the destruction cannot bring honor. It's not done in an honorable way.
In cities like Portland, Oakland, Denver, and Phoenix, protests have started peaceful. Those behind the badge shaking hands,
It's all love here.
Take a knee.
kneeling for justice, and even walking alongside protesters.
There's racism here. That's what we're standing against. That's what we want change for, and that's why they're walking with us.
After police in Seattle took a knee, hours later, they picked up their guns, declaring a riot when rocks and bottles were hurled at them. Jolene Kent caught in the crossfire.
Oh my gosh. No, go.
As police pushed back the crowd.
Look, America, this is not about black anymore. This is not about white. This is about justice for all humans.
But tonight, after a week of protest, patience is wearing thin, as one side of the police line demands order and the other justice.
The question tonight in this city and so many others, what will happen after curfew? Here in Los Angeles, police are staged just around the corner. It could be a long night ahead. Lester?
Miguel Almaguer in Los Angeles tonight. Thanks. An early curfew taking effect here in New York as well after last night's violence. Ron Allen has been following the protests all day. Ron, what's the latest?
Good evening, Lester. This is what we've been seeing all day through the streets of New York City. Thousands of peaceful protesters apparently trying to make a profound statement before that 8 p.m. curfew goes into effect. We're also seeing a massive police presence, what's expected to be one of the biggest in recent memory because of all the criticism that they've been facing. Now, we understand that the protests here may be turning a corner there and heading about a mile in that direction to President Trump Tower for a big rally this evening. The police have been saying that as these protests have been going on day by day, they've been getting more and more peaceful. But they say they're fighting a determined, sophisticated, organized criminal element determined to cause vandalism and destruction. Tonight, police seem determined to stop it. We'll see what happens after dark.
Ron Allen
Lester?
tonight. Ron Allen in New York, thank you. And as the country tries to deal with this wave of violence and vandalism marring the protests, some people are preparing to take a stand to defend what's theirs. Here's Gotti Schwartz.
As plywood goes up across America, more guns are coming out as well. Store owners seeing images like this now arming themselves.
We will arm ourselves. We will protect our business.
But defending property has turned deadly in places like Philadelphia, where police say a gun store owner killed an armed looter.
The owner of the gun shop was in possession of one of his guns, fired several shots, striking the one male at least one time in the head.
A woman in Rochester attacked after telling looters not to steal from a jewelry store. In Phoenix, this armed store owner saying he's trying to protect his property.
This isn't a protest, this isn't rioting. This is crime.
They're having a standoff here.
Oh my God. Yesterday, an armed liquor store owner chasing off looters, all unfolding during a live broadcast by Fox 11 in Los Angeles that has since gone viral. Even when police arrive, there is confusion between who is a criminal and who is a bystander.
These people were protecting the store.
That is Monette Watley, who helped chase off looters put against a wall. The Fox reporter insisting she was helping to protect the store.
You're losing your looters. They're going down that way. These are the people in the store trying to stop.
Eventually, Monette is released.
What do you think would have happened if the camera wasn't here?
They probably would have took me to jail. They probably would have taken me to jail.
Monette says she understands the pain and the rage, but the looting is hurting everyone.
It's not right. This is not what a protest is about. You're tearing up all the stores in everybody's city. We're not getting nothing done by that.
As for the police who handcuffed her,
I understand you're tired, you're overworked, you're on tactical alert, but we're still humans.
Her message to both police and those looting is simple: accountability, starting with what happened to George Floyd. Gotti Schwartz, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And tonight, President Trump is facing a furious backlash after visiting a Catholic shrine today, and that visit last night to a church near the White House for a photo op after police used force to clear protesters from the area. Here's Jeff Bennett.
President Trump sparking sharp criticism from top religious leaders for the second time in 2 days, with the Washington Archbishop slamming the president's visit today to a Catholic shrine. I find it baffling and reprehensible that any Catholic facility would allow itself to be so egregiously misused and manipulated. It follows fresh fallout over the government's decision Monday night to use physical force and flashbangs to disperse peaceful protesters from in front of the White House, clearing the way for the president and his top advisors to walk across Lafayette Square to the historic St. John's Episcopal Church, where a fire was set during demonstrations. President Trump posing for pictures, holding up a Bible without explanation. It was Attorney General Bill Barr who asked for the perimeter around the church to be expanded. The White House, within hours, editing footage of the president's brief outing into a triumphant video. The Episcopal Bishop of D.C. blasting the president, saying she never gave him permission to be there.
He didn't come to church to pray. He didn't come to church to offer condolences to those who are grieving. He didn't come to commit to healing our nation.
A group of pastors today echoing the bishop.
Mr. President, I know you stood right here and held the Bible in your hand, but it is clear you don't have the Bible in your heart.
Sources tell NBC News the president's decision to visit that church was fueled in part by frustration over news reports that the Secret Service ushered him to a bunker during Friday night's protest. And it was his idea because he wanted the visual of looking strong and in charge. Meantime, Joe Biden offering a stark contrast to the president today in Philadelphia.
A country is crying out for leadership. Leadership that can recognize pain and deep grief of communities that have had a knee on their neck for a long time.
The apparent Democratic presidential nominee pledging to address racial injustice.
The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism. to deal with the growing economic inequity that exists in our nation, to deal with the denial of the promise of this nation made to so many.
And tonight, rare comment from former President George W. Bush. In a statement, he said he's anguished by George Floyd's killing and that it's time to examine what he calls America's tragic failures, saying it's critical to seeing the country's reality honestly and improving on it. Lester?
Jeff Bennett at the White House, thanks. 8 days after the death of George Floyd, the Minneapolis Police Department is under intense new scrutiny tonight as the mother of one of Floyd's children speaks out for the first time. Gabe Gutierrez is in Minneapolis.
Tonight, as this memorial grows, the state of Minnesota has launched a sweeping civil rights investigation of the Minneapolis Police Department for the first time in its history.
Today, as a step towards that deconstruction of systemic racism.
But there's mounting frustration here that 3 of the fired officers at the scene of George Floyd's death have not yet been criminally charged. Donald Williams is still haunted by that night.
He's not moving.
He says he walked up while Floyd was already on the ground.
At the time, George is on the floor, panting for his life, asking for forgiveness, calling for his mom, saying he can't breathe.
Could you believe what you were seeing?
Nah, it was like in a twilight zone. It was like something that was unreal.
Former officer Derek Chauvin has been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter after kneeling on Floyd's neck for close to 9 minutes.
Should those other officers face charges?
Yeah. They killed a human being.
All of the officers have declined to comment publicly. The state's attorney general is now leading the case and has declined to give any timeline.
We expect the other officers to be arrested before George Floyd is laid to rest.
Floyd leaves behind 2 children, including 6-year-old Gianna.
He was a good, just all-around good guy.
Her mother, Roxy Washington, says Floyd was very involved in their life in Houston.
Gianna never gets to see her dad again. Never.
Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Minneapolis.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.